Welcome to the Vigor Life Podcast, a source of inspiration, lessons, stories, skill sets, mindsets, and strategies to invigorate and expand all areas of your life. Let's go. What's going on? Coach Luka is back here with the Vigor Life Podcast, and man, we've had some good stuff going on, and I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast with Joe DeFranco. Absolutely loved it. Been having great feedback on that. With that said, I'm gonna turn the I would say the let's just say we're gonna turn the focus a little bit on today again on some points that I think are massively important when it comes to leadership, right? And I talk about this a lot, like teamwork, leadership, running teams. Is once again I shared that I throw myself into things like very, very deep. You know, if I want to improve on leadership, I'm reading 20 leadership books in a row, going to seminars, going to courses, hiring mentors. And why? Because, well, it keeps it in the forefront of my mind. It's kind of like one of those things, like, where your focus goes, that's where your action goes. Where your attention goes, that's where your focus goes, right? And like that's what grows. And so that's worked well for me in the past, and I continue doing that. Doesn't mean it's the only thing I'm working on, but certainly if I feel like there's something that I can improve and want to improve, and that's kind of like the catalyst for growth, I end up doing it. So, and then there's something that usually will happen, or something that I read, or something that somebody says that spurs me putting on this the podcast that I do, right? Like while sometimes there's topics that I work on and say, hey, I really want to talk about this because people bring it up to me as something that they'd like to improve, work on, be better at, and so, well, that's what I bring up. A lot of times it's just like it's a trigger in my own life, or an aha moment, and I've been sharing this for quite some time, and yet with the amount of, I say, business coaching I do and consulting I do, it's one of the things that continues to come up. And not only just in business, but just in life, where I would say, how do you get a group of people to achieve a goal, right? Which is essentially, everything. Everybody's a team, right? Like I said, families are teams, sports teams are teams, businesses are teams, charity organizations are teams, you name it. Anything that's collaborative in nature, you become a team, even if it's just for the purpose of completing a task. Example, if I hire somebody for a project, well, the time that we're working on that project, hey, listen, we're a team, right? So there is literally no place or nowhere unless you're in a complete individual in isolation where you don't need teamwork, communication, and leadership. And so basically, one of the things that really spurred kind of like this idea and of what I want to talk about today, and a whole slew of notes, is going from a soloist to a conductor. And I read this somewhere. Han-Na Chang, who enjoyed a very successful career as a cellist, and I think I said that right. She went from being a solo cellist to a conductor, okay? And what she pointed out was that going from one to the other is that conducting is completely different from being a soloist, right? And she said, hey, when I play my instrument, what I think quite naturally and instantaneously translates into sound, when conducting, it's making sound with a group of individuals, right? So the possibilities and the potential of the sound of an orchestra are virtually limitless. And this is truly fascinating to me. So that's something that she said, right? Like it's such a different kind of framework. And another person, Eric Jacobson, who's an American violinist who began conducting, spoke about the role and impact of being a conductor. And he said, ideally, a conductor is a catalyst for mutual understanding. Right, I'm going to say that again. I found this so powerful. Ideally, a conductor is a catalyst for mutual understanding, with the orchestra becoming greater than the sum of its parts. Right? So think about that. And most of the time, when you step into leadership roles, we go from being a little bit more of a soloist to a conductor. And I think about even starting starting, I said my business, it was just me, right? Like I was doing all the training, I was doing everything. You're, especially in the times of when you're like, hey, I'm a personal trainer, like it's, one-on-one and it's just you. And it's really easy for that to happen. So, but as soon as you build, and I even think at that point in time, you're better off having this mentality that I'm going to talk about right now, like Soloist to Conductor, even in the sense of that, like essentially your clients are part of your team, where it's like you're working with them in that team effort. And so remember, the potential of a group is always greater than that of an individual, period, right? People working together possess limitless possibilities. They can work together to do something greater than themselves. And I feel like that's the key to really kind of spurring, I would say, teams towards something greater, right? It's to like show them like, hey, listen, this is bigger than us. Like this, like I can't, bigger ground, I can't do it myself, period, right? While it's easy to go like, well, but you're the owner and this, that, and the other. The truth is like, I can't do it myself. There's a lot of amazing people that have been a part of building this and continue to, and honestly, to make it what my vision is, like our vision is, it's our vision. Like we need a team, and I need to be a conductor, not a soloist, right? And the thing is that like when you build something special together, like guess what? Everybody enjoys the journey more. But the thing is, that doesn't mean that, working together doesn't have its own challenges, right? When you transition from soloist to conductor, there are just some realities that you have to face. Now, and these are like the 5 realities that I wanted to share, because I guarantee you'll find yourself being in one of those places. So if right now you're in a space where you're like, I want to work better with my team or as part of a team, right? And because maybe, like I said, there's a sub team and you work for a big, like I've gone in to consult for Boeing and some other big companies where, there's subsets of like divisions, and then there's teams. There's smaller teams that are part of bigger teams that are part of bigger teams. And, essentially pretty much most people find themselves inside of a team. But as a conductor of that team, right? And remember, sometimes you're a part of a team and you're not leading that team, but you're leading another team, which may be like at home. So hear me out, because this will apply to every single one of those situations and scenarios. Okay, so number one reality that you have to face. This was such a big thing. About 3 years ago, I was just, frustrated a lot of the time, and until I realized this, okay? And I actually would be pointing fingers and be like, man, like, people don't push as hard as me and move as fast as me and so on and so forth. And so the number one reality that you have to face when it comes to shifting from being a soloist to conductor is that you have to go slower so you can go further. Yep. I'm pausing just like that. Going slower so you can go further. It really is that important. Like, think about this, okay? So, like, you've probably heard the old expression, like, it's lonely at the top, and definitely applied to leadership. But think about that statement, right? If you're at the top all alone, where are the people you're supposed to be leading? Powerful question. I heard Jamie Foxx say one time when he was having a conversation with somebody that said that to him and said, oh man, it's lonely at the top. And Jamie Foxx said back to them, said, yeah, man, because you didn't bring anybody with you. That's your fucking problem right there, right? And that's true. So, like, shouldn't they be at the top with you? If you're at the top alone, it means you took off ahead of all your people and left them behind. If you climb the peaks of success alone, you're not a leader. You're a hiker. I'll repeat that. If you climb the peaks of success alone, you are not a leader. You're a hiker. Now, as much as I love hiking, in this scenario, I definitely don't want to be a hiker. I want to be a leader. So you're a leader only if you have your people with you. Your pace will be slower, but you'll journey together, right? You'll journey together. We talked about this too, as far as like just life in itself, building a business, building anything, how much more enjoyable it is when you go together, right? That's part, like if you're ahead by yourself and you're like, man, those people are too slow. Like, man, there isn't a joy in that. First of all, that's just not going to work out long term. It's going to fall apart. but also the joy isn't there. So celebrating your victories together, right? Like, good leaders don't go to the top alone and then yell down, "Hey, people, come on up. If you can figure out how to make the climb." Like that's not great. That's not good, right? Great leaders, they make a conscious decision to slow down. They carefully choose their steps so they can help others make the climb with them. Right, so think about, like I just mentioned, the cellist. Right? So think about how this must have been for Hana, right? Hana Chang, when she shifted from soloist to conductor. As a musician, she could pick up her instrument anytime she wanted to, play any music she wanted to, and do so however long she wanted. Right? She could focus on any part of the music desired or on any aspect of her technique with absolutely no regard to others. Right? And like that's the, I would say the benefit a lot of times, right? The selfish benefit of being solo is because, hey, listen, I do whatever I want, whenever I want to, however I want to do it. And while that sounds good, that really doesn't work well in any type of team setting or when you're responsible for others, right? Now, because as a conductor, she can't do that, just like you can't, right? She has to make arrangements. She has to be on other people's schedules. She has to take into consideration the abilities and personalities of a larger group of people. She has to communicate her vision. And in the end, she bears their responsibility for success or for failure, or their failure. And as leaders and business owners, like that's part of that's part of what you take on. And, and look, I keep it real a lot of times, man, and just say, look, is this the role that you want to step into, right? Because I think sometimes there's this misconception of what leadership is or what you're taking on, and you are taking a lot. You're taking on a lot of responsibility. I've shared that in the past podcast, right? And as I've already mentioned, leaders have a natural bias for action, right? Good leaders see more than others do, and they see it before others do, right? It's in their DNA to move quickly and decisively. So their natural inclination is often to run fast on their own, to climb as high as they can. And that's the shift, because that's kind of like, I would say, many times in my life, the shift that I had to come from. I'm go. Like I'm ready. Let's go. Right? Like I'll be over there. Man, it's funny. I come back to this story of like how we did the Tough Mudder one time, and it was like this mentality where me and my brother just like ran off, and I was competing with him, but I essentially left the team behind, what agreement was that we do. Now, it wasn't that big of a deal in sorts, but it was just a show of mentality though, right? Like you can't leave your team behind. You have to be there, right? Pulling them up, challenging them. We'll get to that in a second, actually. But that's so important, because what made you usually push and lead and get to a place that you are were some of these characteristics that are in the DNA to get ahead. But you have to shift that. Like going from soloist to conductor is a mental shift. Like, and you have to kind of like, you have to get the aha moment to go like, oh shit, like this is why this is not working. All right. I'm being a soloist, like in a group setting where it's not working out. Like this is right. Even though I'm a great player, maybe the sound is off because I'm being selfish and not playing with the whole group. Right. And so that's very important, right? Because to lead others successfully, leaders need to travel with their people, not run or climb ahead of them. I'm going to repeat that. To lead other people successfully, leaders need to travel with their people, not run or climb ahead of them. Right? So this requires a leader to do what I call like the leadership dance. Okay? I've named it a lot of different things before, but it is a leadership dance. And as you lead, your position in a group can't be static. I think a lot of people get stuck in that, okay? Remember, leadership, unlike management, notice I don't use it necessarily interchangeably. I always come back to leadership. Unlike management, is dynamic, right? Management is a very I would say more of a static, checklisted kind of thought process, right? Leadership is dynamic. It expects change, right? So to do the leadership dance, you have to step ahead of people, staying close enough for them to see you. Then you have to step beside people, listening to them and talking about the journey. Like I said, that's that Sherpa part that I talk about. Like you're guiding, you're walking alongside them, right? But then sometimes you have to step behind people, sharing words of encouragement to keep them going. Well, we talked about this whole Everest, right? Like that it's leadership is like coaching leadership, like very interchangeable because we help people get to their Mount Everest, right? And the Sherpa, you're their guide to their Everest. Now, sometimes the Sherpa, like I said, has got to get ahead and close enough to so that they can see you, but so they're pushing the tempo a little bit more. Not too much though, but a little bit more. And sometimes you got to give them your hand and pull them up on tough parts and tough areas to climb, right? Most of the time you're beside them, listening to them, talking about their journey, helping them out, guiding them, coaching them, right? Sometimes you got to get behind them, sharing words of encouragement, pushing them, right? But most of the time you're going to be beside them. And the thing is that this leadership dance, right? Doing this dance keeps you connected to your people and energizes everyone. And that's important because healthy organizations and teams are not about the person who leads them. They're about everybody who's in them, right? They're about everybody who's in them. You're going to notice I'm going to like turn that music down a little bit inside of the gym. Thank goodness for controls. So being a good leader is about helping people reach their potential. Right? That doesn't happen unless their leader is willing to slow down and take the journey with them. Like that is massively, massively important. Okay. And honestly, like that could be a point enough to stop. Because if you found yourself in that, like going like, holy shit, like I'm still too much of a soloist, right? That's a big aha moment. Okay. Number two realization that you have to have is that recognizing that you need others. Right? Recognizing you need others. So another reality you must recognize when transitioning from soloist to conductor is you need other people. Like you can't produce the music of an orchestra when you're trying to be a one-man or one-woman band. And, Zig Ziglar was a big influence on me. Like, I mean, if anybody has been in business, been in sales, been in, I would say in leadership, if you haven't read Zig Ziglar, he's an OG. And basically, like, one of the things that he said was if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. Right? And once I made that discovery, I began creating an environment where people work together to add to one another's strengths and offset one another's weaknesses. Right? I've shared before, like, man, like I certainly have some very, very, I was just like my genius, right? But at the same time, I also have my weaknesses. And having people compliment that and bringing your weaknesses up is great and all, but like having somebody compliment that is very, very important, right? And I ask others to come alongside me and make up for my leadership deficits, right? And I, in turn, work to apply my strengths to their weak areas. Think about that. I apply my strengths to their weak areas, and other people apply their strengths to my weak areas, right? I just made it my goal to cultivate an environment where we put completing one another ahead of competing with one another. That's powerful, right? Complete one another and not compete with one another. Notice the difference between these two attitudes. Now, I would certainly say, like, as you kind of go along the ride in life and in business, like these things, you kind of start figuring them out. Unfortunately, sometimes you figure them out because of painful realizations, right? Like I said, a lot of this, it takes dropping the ego, right? It takes having to, for me, a big time of, I would say, just life was like chasing significance. So then it's hard to let go of certain things because you're like, no, I'm significant. Like I'm the man, like I'm this, I'm in front of the band and I'm playing and like, this is my show. You guys are just the backup, right? Like, and when you have, and sometimes it's not a conscious thing. It can be a subconscious thing, but your behaviors show that. And so you got to check your behaviors. If you're still like, you're part of a band, but like you're really kind of like behaving like a soloist, and that can flare up. So just remember this, because it's a very easy, it resonates and it sounds, right? Competing versus completing. Right. So when you compete, you have a scarcity mindset. Those people that are competing, they have a scarcity mindset and they think win-lose. Right. They're like, nah, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. When you're on a team, like that's not the perspective that you want to have. You practice single thinking, right? You think singularly. You think me, how do things affect me, and how do you don't really think about how you affect others. And it excludes others. Like you don't really give a shit about others, right? Because it's like you're competing. It's like, no. It's me against everybody else. So it's do or die, right? Where completing, there's an abundance mindset with completing. you think win-win. I've talked about this before. Like these days, to me, it's like if I can't create a win-win situation, I'm not going to go into it. Even if I win and the other person loses, if you're part of my team, a part of my, I would say, environment, like, man, like I'm not playing that game, right? Now, if this is a different story, if our team is going against, somebody else, but even then, like I said, in many scenarios, if there's collaboration and there's teamwork, like it's got to be win-win. Like everybody on my team's got to win. And also in completing, you include others, right? You don't exclude others, you include others. So completing culture creates wins for everyone. It lifts morale. It encourages team members to make one another better. People enjoy working in an environment like that. Like obviously, if you've done enough of the study of just social environments and tribes and teams working together, like we know that like obviously psychological safety is important, and there's a big part of that. Like if people are like, hey, this person's on my team, he's got my back, I feel safe, I can share my struggles, I can share my pains and fears and desires and dreams. Like that is a great environment to work in. It's been proven that those are the most successful environments. Even when the talent is not the best, those are the teams that win, right? So, and as I create a culture environment where completing is valued, I better understand how I need others, right? And that's been a journey for me. And I also began enjoying what we're doing together. Like honestly, that's probably one of the most fulfilling things is creating something meaningful with people that I care about. Honestly, there's very few things in the world that are better than that. And so that completes that point, right? Recognizing that you need others, because you have to have that frame of mind before you can actually start operating in a more kind of the conductor way. Number 3 is making the effort to understand others. And, we've done full shows on talking about that. And while many entrepreneurs and high achievers are able to work alone, essentially like good soloist musicians who choose to play, and you guys probably seen the videos, like you choose to play in the subway, they can create music without the assistance of any other musicians, right? It's a skill set. It's also true that the same soloists are so talented that others are willing to work with them, even if the soloist is egotistical and inconsiderate, right? I mean, you see that, right? Somebody's massively talented, incredible skill set. Other people will work with them even though they don't like to, but they'll kind of like, all right, plug in, right? But nobody can become a good conductor without making the effort to understand other people. So those are very rare examples of what you'll see in like with those soloists that I would say, and I don't want to make this super black and white, but like most of the time, like those people are never part of successful teams, right? They do well by themselves, but they never have a group of people that stick around because obviously there's disengagement, right? If somebody believes that they're better and don't care to understand anybody else, like you're not going to have a positive result in that. So when people lead without taking the time or making the effort to understand those who are trying to follow them, the results can be tragic or comic, right? And so I'll give you an example. This is I actually saw this with I was at a friend's house with a lot of kids, and they were, kind of setting up this like marching band. Let's just call it a marching band. And it was, there was like 8 kids. One of them had a whistle, and pretty much it was like a march command, right? When I whistle, we start marching with our little implements and our sticks. And then when I blow the whistle, right, we stop. And obviously, like they were having the kids switch up so everybody get their turn. With that, like at the beginning, the first 3-4 kids, everything is like blow the whistle, and they're marching in unison, right? And they're having fun, and the whistle stops, and they're pausing again, and they're pausing for a little bit, and they go again, right? And then when it came to one kid got the whistle, got the power. So think about that. Like it's basically, think of it as that person got the leadership torch, okay? And once they got that leadership torch, they were just like, or should I say the whistle, but let's just say the leadership torch, right? They started blowing the whistle, but like erratically, right? Start, stop, right? And everybody was out of unison, and then everybody started getting pissed off, but the kid kept doing it. And why? Well, look, it probably the first time in a while where maybe they felt they had control, and there's the friends and siblings kind of had to submit to their power, even though this is all like just playing games or whatnot. It's a perfect example, right? If it's a perfect example of lack of understanding and communication, and having everybody be on the same page so everything looks smooth and is working together. So of course, like when that person tried to take control and show power, it was disorganized. They weren't moving forward. They weren't marching in unison. They weren't getting the result that they wanted because, like I said, we're not going to dive deep into the reasons, but like because of the selfishness, or I would say that soloist mentality was essentially applied to the group. Right. And the thing is, like, you find this in so many scenarios, and you go like, man, I don't know why this is working. Or a lot of times if you start pointing fingers, and I've done that before too, like where I was having this kind of soloist approach and started pointing fingers about how everybody else is not understanding. And, and obviously this is where kind of you got to point the finger, and point it right back at yourself, because take responsibility. Like I said, especially if you're the person that's in the leadership position, like you got to start checking yourself. You don't want to be that person where, is driving down the wrong side of the freeway going like, man, look at all these idiots driving the wrong way, which the likelihood is that it's you, right? It's like not 99% of people are driving the wrong way. Man, it might be you driving the wrong way, and you got to make that decision. And another way that I looked at this, while I haven't danced tango since I was in 12th grade, because we had to, long story short, like you do this, we call it matura. Matura is, I don't know, like graduation, like in like what we call our secondary school. And we do all these dances and classical dances, and we do tango. And one of the dances was tango. Like we had to do a tango number at our graduation with our partner. And as we were coaching for it, the dance instructor was telling us that like that in tango you cannot lead without having the sense of the follower. So the follower has to be able to trust the leader, and she must be able to move with him with the music. Only together they can accomplish the dance. And that cooperation, understanding also applies to good leadership, right? Actually, the leader in tango is trying to make the other person look great. Think about that. That's deep, right? And for most, obviously, as you come into that setting, I was like, what do you mean, right? Like, and there was like, no, like it's all about one person trying to make the other person look great. And that's your whole motivation, right? Like, you're synced up with the other person, and you make it as smooth as possible so that they look amazing, right? And so that mentality, and trust me, back then I didn't get it. Like, I'm not going to give you this whole spiel that like when the instructor said that I was like, oh, this makes so much sense in life. I should start doing that, because at that age I was a knucklehead. So, and a lot of bad things happened before I got that. But like now, like I said, looking back, that was like, it made me think of that. And it's certainly like, if you have that approach in life, whether it's even in your personal relationships, right? I believe that works better, right? It makes everybody, you're more likable. You have more enjoyment, more fulfillment by making somebody else look great, right? So number 4, this leads into number 4, which is great. Is a great kind of like transition, is that wanting others to shine more than you do. Oh, that's hard. I know that was hard for me. But once again, it's hard until you have a certain belief system of a soloist. But when you shift it, that becomes a lot easier. And, going back think of it this way, okay? Good leaders who conduct rather than go solo want the people who work with them to shine. And how do they do that? They follow this thinking. I wrote these notes down, and I think I was reading this in a John Maxwell book, or it could have been, I'm not sure. I've been reading a lot of books. But I got these notes down. So it says, before I say, follow me, I find you. Before I ask you to listen to me, I listen to you. When I show you the big picture, you are in it. When I point to success, I point to you. Often you hear me say, I need you. Often you discover he needed me. After the journey, we're both exhausted. After the victory, you hold the trophy. Right? That's the thinking that leaders follow when they're trying to make others shine more than you. Right? So good leaders do what they can to put others in a position to win. And like that's become more and more, I would say, let's just say that it's becoming more and more of my reality every single day. And like I said, like usually it's not like old habits die hard, old belief systems, have to be overridden. But man, like there's no time in my life where I've wanted my team individually and together to succeed more than I do now. So the thing is like every day, like I look for opportunities to lift people up. And you could, first of all, this doesn't have to be, related in just your team and your business. Like this could legitimately be anywhere, anytime, just people, especially people in your circle that you love. And here's a simple formula, okay? See the possibilities in all people, honor them in front of others, invite them to help achieve the vision, notice what they do well and compliment them, and then last, thank them to make sure that they know they're valued. Right? I'll run through this once again, like maybe this is something that you should have written down somewhere. Like powerful things, I like to write them down and like rewrite them a lot of times in my journal because that like literally helps ingrain stuff in my head, right? See the possibilities in all people, honor them in front of others, invite them to help achieve the vision, notice what they do well and compliment them, and thank them to make sure they know that they're valued. Right. So I strive to do this every day. And as you can see, none of these actions, takes like some genius or brilliance or a higher degree of skills. Really not, right? They're simple. But they do all require some type of focus and intentionality, right? Like you have to be intentional about this stuff. And if you want to become a good conductor, I would highly suggest you give those a try and help others to shine and like make it like, it can sound fooful. Like me and Jay Ferrugia always talk about how he would, he would track his KPIs would be how many people he'd talk to in a day, ask questions, make smile, and like really mark it down because when he wanted to get better at that, he tracked the KPIs in that. Well, I challenge you and have you consider tracking for the next 30 days, like, how you do that. If you want to be a good conductor, like thanking people, shining light on positive things, like every day having a little checklist, man, how many times did you do it? Did you do it at all? Right. And at the end of 30 days, see how you feel, like see how people around you are behaving, what their energy is like, what your energy is like. You'll be blown away. Right. And I always say like, hey, if you don't think it'll make that big of a difference, prove me wrong and do it. Do it for 30 days straight. Prove me wrong. See how it goes. Right. This leads me to number 5, which is helping others to become better every day. Man, so isn't this like the whole foundation of if anybody ever said things like, I want to make an impact? That's the definition of it, helping others become better every day. So to become a successful leadership conductor, you must go slower so you can go farther, recognize that you need others, make the effort to understand others, and want others to shine more than you do. But we'll also need to learn how to do things every day that help the people that you lead improve, right? So this requires taking the focus off yourself and looking for ways you can help others reach their potential. And sometimes that can be a challenge, right? And sometimes that can be a challenge because of belief systems. What's crazy is like, and like even part of, as part of my team, like I've had people that kind of would let's just say that they've experienced leadership in the past that was fear-based leadership, and the leadership was not in line with helping everybody win. Now, if that's the case, if that's all you've experienced your whole life, right, then man, it's hard to now. As soon as you're in a position where somebody's a leader and is like, hey, listen, I'm trying to make you better and help you out every day, and you're like, nah, man, I know how this goes. Like you're just trying to take and use me and then, and then kick me out, right? And like, for real, like I've been in scenarios like that in my life too, right? So it can be, I can be a learned belief system, but I've been around now people that I've mentored where that tends to be the case. And like, I really try to, understand where they're coming from, because I used to also live in, if you guys, I've shared that you played basketball in Ukraine, and professional basketball for a team called Himik, which is actually one of the best teams in that country. We played in the ULIP Cup League. They made it to the finals. I played it for a while. It's like the city is about 45 minutes out of Odessa, which is a big city in Ukraine. And, that country has been under leadership that has not like looked out for the best of all. So like, I remember too, back then, it was a transition, like even bringing people in that would talk about adding value to others and creating leadership amongst teams. And it was, hard to shift the beliefs. Right. And so, asking the question of like, hey, how many of you have been hurt by leaders? Man, like, I would say, put it this way, some of the people that I just mentioned, and also like, I would say the people in Ukraine would raise their hands like way high up in the air, right? Because for generations, it's like when you don't add value, you have leadership that has made, for generations, things fall apart. And sometimes in individuals too, they're coming from a background where leadership was breaking things down and not trying to add value to them and help them rise. So, to come back to like the three questions, right? The three questions that followers ask of their leaders, or I don't like the word followers, but like I would say your team or the people that are part of their tribe ask of their leaders. And number one is, do you care for me? Right? Do you care for me? Number two is, can I trust you? And then number three, can you help me? Right? And obviously, if you can answer those, because two of those questions, one is about like value and like competence and stuff, but two of those are questions about care. Like, man, are you looking out for my best interest? And if you can, if you can answer those, then obviously like there's value being given there, and there's I would say a positive focus on and helping somebody improve, right? So thinking about that, right? That you have to first of all believe that helping people, adding value to them, and using influence to improve their community, that's something like that people want to be a part of. It's something that like you have to share, and like that's one of the things that like, I mean, obviously in the fitness industry, think about what we do, like constantly bringing it back to that. It's like, man, like we live in a world of like the more value that you add, going back to that Zig Ziglar quote, that the more value that you add to others, the more you're going to get what you want, right? It goes back to that same thing. But hey, listen, like once again, when you're speaking to people and you have people in your on your teams or individuals, and like I said, whether it's friends, family, businesses, that maybe, like I said, they have a history of leaders breaking things down and not lifting them up, there has to be a frame shift, and you have to create that frame. Right? You have to be the person that goes back and goes like, hey, do I care for you? Hey, can you trust me? Can I help you? Right? Like, and constantly reinforce those things and actually show that that's true. Like, you'll be on a winning path. Right? So you have to change your focus from receiving to giving. Like, from soloist to conductor, like that's one of the main things that you got to look at. And as a younger leader, and maybe I wouldn't call myself that, like in certain times of coming up, at least not nowadays, but like, hey, look, we all learn, right? I was focused on how people could help me, and not on how I could help them and add value to them. And, once I stepped into the coaching and the fitness industry, that was a big shift for me, because I was actually drawn to that because a good chunk of my life was, I was living in a significance yet scarcity world taking, right? And I wanted to turn things around. And my thinking back then was selfish and also short-sighted, right? And having lived in a kind of socialist country early in my life, I kind of should have known better, about the the sowing and reaping principles, right? Sowing always precedes reaping. And as leaders, our question these days should not be, will I reap a harvest? Instead, it should be, have I sowed the seeds today? Right? Have you sowed the seeds today? And even though, look, I know the metaphor is changing from music. We started with music and now we're in farming, but stay with me here, right? So, another way, I'm trying to add value. Am I trying to add value or take value? Am I focused on receiving or giving? As a soloist, it's just very easy to make everything about yourself. How am I performing? Is the orchestra making me sound good? Is my technique as good as I want it to be? Is my audience appreciating me and my performance? Is this moment helping my career? And good leaders shift from being self-focused to others-focused. They give more than they take. They focus on sowing and not reaping. As leaders, we need to maintain that seed sowing mindset, right? And what does that mean? Well, it means that we should focus on adding value daily, right? And I think that goes multiple ways. Like the way I look at focus on adding value daily, that is where like people go like, oh, social media, like I think there's some negative benefits to it, like, but we still control and choose it. But you can add value and impact people on social media in a positive way. If you do that, add value daily there. But even more so if you have a team like face to face like that, you want to add value to your team. Well, whether they're face to face or not, like add value to your team, add value to the marketplace, right? But focus on adding value daily. Add as much value as possible, as often as possible. I think it's really easy to hold back and go like, I should only give this much, right? But man, every single person, like my friends and mentors too, that like said, hey man, the more value I gave, the more it came back to me. Whether it was, then people buying the products, hiring them for coaching, whatever else it may be. I don't think that there's like any benefit for like holding all the stuff back. Like there isn't, right? And then number 3 is like never wait to add value. Wait for what? What are you waiting for? Say like you want to for a better time. Like I'll add value when I get more known or better, or whatever. Like you can add value today. Don't wait. You have something to give to this world. You have an expertise. You have a genius. You have a knowledge. And as long as you know more than somebody in a certain area, like then you can add value. Give without keeping score, so motives stay pure. I think that this is a really easy thing to kind of slip off of, right? But when you start doing stuff and subconsciously you go like, all right, man, now I've already done this many things. I keep putting stuff out there. I gave this person X, Y, Z, like, and I'm not getting the return. That's a slippery slope. Number one, because it creates a certain expectation. But we talked about expectations, right? When life meets or exceeds your expectations, you're happy. When it doesn't, you're unhappy. So it can create this cycle of like you have all these expectations, and you're keeping score, and then you're not getting what you expect, and all of a sudden you're pissed off and unhappy, and that's going to break the cycle too, right? It breaks the cycle. And welcome. This one is key. Like, man, I was down in Miami with my great friends Mike DeSanti, and he said something similar to this, but it resonates so true with me. Is like, welcome any return as an unexpected blessing. If you live life like that, like think about that, right? Like you just give with just absolutely no kind of expectation of receiving. You're like, the gift is the giving, right? The gift is to be able to add value to your people. Like that's the fulfillment in itself. And then anything that you get in return is just an unexpected blessing. Like imagine living like that. And like that, I mean, I sure can't tell you that I'm there fully, but certainly way, way, way more. This is how I've shifted my belief systems and thinking. And here's the thing, like I'll finish off with kind of like how this cycle works. Okay. This is how it works. Your belief drives your anticipation, right? Because you have a certain belief, you start anticipating it. That anticipation drives intention. So now you start becoming intentional about something, right? Intention creates focus. Or should I say intention helps us prioritize focus, right? Then focus helps us see opportunity. Only when we see the opportunity are we able to take action on it. And when we do it, when we take action, it inflames our passion to do more good. That in turn fuels our belief. And the cycle begins all over again, right? So this is a circle you definitely don't want to keep. You want to keep it unbroken. So if you have a belief and your belief is adding value, right, every day, like these 5 points that I just shared in last, right? Focusing on adding value a day, focusing on adding as much as possible, never waiting to add value, right? Giving without keeping score and keeping your motives pure, and then welcome any return as an unexpected blessing. If this is your belief, that belief encourages that anticipation, right? Anticipation creates intention. Intention helps us prioritize focus. Focus helps us see opportunity. When we see opportunity, we're able to take action on it. When we do it, it inflames our passion to do more good, and that in turn fuels our belief. And you can see how that's like a cycle that goes around and around and around. And like that's how good things happen, right? And you have that, you stay patient, right? And you may, if it's a belief system, it's different. It's not like a strategy, like it's a belief system. It means it's the way you live your life. And so that is going to be my ending piece in how you become a better conductor and how you shift from a soloist to conductor. Because as long as I've been doing it, studying it, getting better at it, I can continue to get better and better and better and better at it. And like I don't think there's no ending. There's no peak in this one. It's like, how can I be a better leader for my people? Like, man, like there's, how can I be a better part of teams, right? How can I be a better contributor to the things that matter in my life and the people that matter in my life? And, there is no limit to that. There should be no ceiling. You should continue to want to get better, even if you are the best. And there's a saying that you guys I know have heard. It said, good is the enemy of great. Everybody's heard that. But also remember that the best is the enemy of better. That's deep. But what does that mean? Like if you start believing that you don't need to learn anymore because you're the best, and like you're like, man, I don't really need to get better. That's the enemy of better. And your goal should be to be better every day, no matter where you're at. Like even if, I don't know, there is such a thing as I'm the best in the world. It's the enemy of better. And so you got to keep getting better every single day. And if you want to be a better leader, constantly study leadership, study communication, study teamwork, right? And you'll get better at it. With that said, I think I didn't even take a sip of Bang this whole time. As always, hey, look, apply this stuff, right? Like apply it. What did you hear? What did you hear me saying, right? Write it down. Like, what did you hear me saying? What stuck out? What's the thing that you're going to apply specifically, right? Because even if I say add value every day, because I'm talking about concepts here, what does that mean to you? Does that mean you're going to write, a mix of an email, a blog, do an in-staff, share something, with a coach every single day that's going to help them get better? Like, what is it that you're going to do? You're going to like do something like teach a lesson to your kid in a positive manner. Like what, you know what I mean? Like write the specific thing down that you're going to do and just work on that one thing. Even if you heard, 10, 8, 5, 15 things that stuck out at you, what's the one thing that you're going to do and move forward? Like I said, you got to take, the knowledge and turn it and integrate it into action and transformation. So do that. Let me know what that is. With that said, as always, hey guys, like love the reviews, love the 5-star reviews, but just love you guys like writing out, what you love about the show. Keep that coming. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and I will see you in the next episode. That's coming up, and I can't even tell what it is yet, but we got a special guest coming on, so I'm excited about that. Peace out. See you next time.